Keep going. Yeah. Okay, the next speaker, Jake Langslag. Got it. Cool season goat grazing, getting out of the barn and onto paying jobs. Minnesota Goat Dispatch Rental Company was established in 2013 by Jake and Amanda Langslag as an alternative way to manage difficult vegetation. Their 10-acre property was so infested with buckthorn that they could not even walk through it. After years of battling and feeling defeated, after using traditional methods, they determined there must be a better way to do that. For them, the traditional methods were very intensive, time-consuming, and they wanted their property a place safe for to raise their children, Ivan 2 and Greta 5, to play outdoors. Amanda was an animal lover, always wanted to own goats, and Jake agreed to get goats with the understanding they were working around the property. It didn't take long for them to figure that out. Jake is a degree in ecology from Minnesota State University in Mankato, has worked in California, New York, Virginia as an environmental researcher and consultant, involved all levels of the goat business. Turn you over to Jake.
All right, thank you. All right, well, it's good to be here. I think the last time, does anybody remember when they were in Texas last time with this group?
Yeah, that was...
How many years ago was that?
6.
6 years ago. So yeah, I first got involved 6 years ago with this group. At the time, there weren't really, I think the board or something started saying, hey, let's start look at small ruminants here. I think, as we say, it's pretty cattle dominated. So I appreciate them. And even at this group, we're starting to see more and more of us sheep and goat people that find our little circles and more people to talk to. So it's been nice. But I trying something a little different. Basically, I'm just taking Google Photos from my phone and just made a slideshow out of it, trying to get everything fresh and current of the stuff that we're doing in Minnesota and how I think other places will maybe not lie after seeing some of those pictures without trees, but just kind of talk about some about that. So this was about 8 years ago. This was kind of the woods, a little pilot. This is the kickoff to our business. Like I said, my wife here, we are battling a brush that we have in Minnesota called buckthorn. It's the green stuff right now in the fall. And I've been trying those different methods. And so finally we just threw up some panels. I borrowed some goats from a friend from high school, threw them out there for the weekend, and was just really amazed on how well and viciously they attacked it and how much fun it was just to sit on the deck and watch them work on it, drinking a beer, versus me going out there on Saturday killing myself. And so what I thought right away, I was just like, oh man, I got them in the fall. You see, I was getting into the business in the fall. I go, I want to use these all winter. So I put some e-net out. I went to my local auction and I bought these goats, and just no experience in goats at all. And it was a train wreck. They were getting out all the time. They were just, yeah. So I totally steep learning curve on that. So I took them out of the e-net, and then I put them more in hard panels. But what I was really interested in, and ever since I started this business, I just kind of watch what the animals do and let them tell me what they want. And I had these hard panels. I'm in the trees, at 10 acres of trees. Everybody else around me has pastures and grass and openness, but I had pens in the forest. Really good oak trees, really good hickories, but really dominant by underbrush. And it surprised me with a nice full hay feeder how much they would kind of ignore the hay and be working on the brush. So it's like, well, what are you guys doing? And then I started cutting stuff down, throwing it in there, watching how much they went at it. And then Black Betty here, one of our favorite back in the day auction goats. I got lucky at a 98% kill auction that I was there and bought her before she would have been meat. Not saying I'm against meat, but she turned out to teach me a lot. I was learning goats, and this is the number one public enemy in Minnesota is this buckthorn plant that everyone's throwing their hands up. They're giving up on it. They don't know what to do. And then I'm out there one morning, and I see her do this, stripping the bark around it all the way, 4 feet up and down. And it just really caught my eye. And ever since then, I've been, and then that same year, then they're doing it again. I thought it was a fluke. Oh, look at this goat. Again, there's that invasive brush, stripping the bark all the way around. And started to look at our species. This, in the way in Minnesota, we're just super, super brushy, we get like 40 inches of rain, a lot of trees. And I noticed that this is another problematic plant, honeysuckle. All of a sudden, boom, it's kind of hard to see, but these fine little bushes. They're stripping the bark on the honeysuckle. And this one's kind of a harder one to get at because it's really bushy, and if you want to cut at it, it's kind of hard to get in and at. And it was just amazing to me that they'll be stripping the bark off something the size of my pinky. So then I just got really more into doing the winter work and moving around and trying different things. And this is us just kind of going out for a day walk one day. And then I started to do some conservation grazing accounts for some, this is a county project. And this is a big map here just to show kind of scale, because, you know, I really wanted to push this more than just being a backyard kind of hobbyist kind of thing. I really wanted to see if we can really make some change in their state, because, you know, it just was really, a lot of people are defeated and basically just kind of saying giving up on it. So this project, it started with the purple and the yellow or whatever zone that they wanted the goats, and, you know, they had me trying to, these are a really steep slope. They wanted me to curve the fence right on the top, and I said, you know what, just forget about it. I'll give you extra acreage. It's easy. I did one huge area all the way around. It turned out to be about a 250-acre pen that I fenced in with e-net. So the top side is e-net. The other side is a creek, a pretty wide creek, so it can work off water. And this site was primarily a winter site. And this is us again kind of moving around. But then I started trying to get, you know, the goats that are hardy enough to like to stay and hang out in Minnesota. And this is a nice frosty, you know, 40, I think like 20, 30 below Fahrenheit morning or whatever, but you can just see the frost build up on some of them, and how certain animals did better. I always try to keep track of our breeding program, which ones are, you know, shivering, which ones feel comfortable, and try to sell some of those off. The ones in Texas that I'm finding, I get a lot of my goats from Texas, they really don't like the shaggy ones down there, it sounds like. So I've done a lot of swaps with my friend. I got another friend in Kansas I'm working with. You know, I swap out the fuzzy ones, and then they want the slick, thin ones because you've got more heat down there. So it works out to be a good trade for us. All of our goats are named, not just because it'd be cute and funny, but it's just easier to remember. And that's our ear tag with our phone number on it if they ever get lost or whatnot. But it just makes me able to track individuals over time, and I can just remember, you know, we've got about 500 goats now that we're renting out. Just I know, you know, hey, this just can see trends and stuff, and that's why I know we're known by names and not social security numbers, because it's hard to remember numbers of things and whatnot. This is kind of doing some winter stuff. Snowmobile, just really have to dress for it. Sometimes, you know, with the wind chills and stuff like that, wearing snowmobile, it's just got to be dressed for the winter. I like to show people pictures like this, so not everybody moves to Minnesota. Snowmobiles work really good when you're trying to move them. They don't. When I first started, a lot of my goats were kind of dainty, didn't really like to walk out in the snow, kind of like some Minnesotans, but some of us like to be out there, and when I make a path with a snowmobile, they'll fall right down the tracks, kind of when I'm moving them where I want them to go. And got this a couple years ago. It's called a snow dog. It's like a tracked thing that you can just throw in the back of a truck or trailer. And if I really need to get in access or we get snowed in on projects where I need to get supplies in, this is how I get it in, just having a lot of different options for that. And then when the snowmobile doesn't start or that doesn't start, the horse always starts in the wintertime, so then we can always go out and check on things that way if I have to do that. And then this is back when we had younger ones and feeding them, some of the bales that we put out, just leave the wrapping on them and let them eat both ends. And this has worked really well to kind of keep them off of it and not jumping on top and peeing and whatever else on the bales. They're trying to get that extra protection. And if you have the right stocking rate, they kind of eat from each side out. I haven't had any collapse or fall or smash anybody. People ask me about that. I do give them what I like called a mix 30. My friend in Kansas turned me onto this. This is a liquid protein versus the tubs. What I like about this is it's oil-based, so it doesn't freeze in my part of the world. And then I can, if it does rain, we can just stir it in. And it's taken my animals some time to learn to get kind of going with it, but every year they're getting better and better with it. So just giving them that extra option just to make sure, because we're out there working in environments like that. And then as far as shelter, we do, when we need to do shelter, we do calf huts that I like to move around, so I have no infrastructure that I need to worry about. Barns, that type of stuff, and I love the cleanup. It's basically me going inside the little hut, do the little turtle for a bit, move it 5-10 feet, and just let it go. You know, there's just, and I like to, and then what I'm finding with certain goats, even like this day, I'm like, why are you guys not going in blizzard and this and that, why you're not going in the huts. They're fluffy, they're happy, they're doing okay. Some more remote sites like that bigger job, I'll work under cedar trees and kind of make some bedding areas, and I let the animals show me where they want to be. So that's why I really enjoy about with that 250 acre pen. I can see exactly, and it changes throughout the year where the sun angle is, because they know where to sleep, where they just get just the right sun angle. It's just fun to watch, to just release these animals out there and kind of cue on some of their natural instincts. And so I build off of that. Hey, they like to hang out in this area. It's blocked by the northwest wind. It gets an early sun exposure. I'll go underneath the cedar trees, kind of trim them up, and throw some bedding down from time to time, or some corn stalks or something, just to kind of build off of that. And again, here's that same site, just some bark stripping, but I threw this slide in just to show the water. So this has a natural, there's not too many of them, but a natural trout stream that's flowing from a creek area, and it doesn't freeze all winter long, no matter what. I mean, it's super, super, it's just really cool how it stays open. And I was just really shocked and amazed that I would follow, I go out and see my goats, I would never see them any trail, very, very rarely would I see them tracks or trails in the snow going down to the creek. I've probably only a handful of times ever, of the 3-year project that we did there, they actually ever went down and made the attempt to drink the water out of the creek. Every other time they're eating snow. So now we just do strictly snow. And I know you got to watch yourself on the internet or this or that, or people are always kind of talking about that, but I think another producer at this talked about in Canada how they don't have a problem with it, and we don't have a problem with it. And the only time you have to watch is when it freezes for us and you don't have snow. Then you got to kind of have to make sure you have water out there, because if you that's the part that we have to haul a little bit more water on the early, like late fall or early spring before we start getting some rain. And then if we do try to build off natural sources, or this one here, again, we don't have snow, so just going out and chipping some ice so they can get some spots in some of the creeks and stuff like that. And this is another thing that I want to see utilized. As we were working on this project, another company was called to come in and cut down a lot of this brush, and that is this like the super goat heaven of knocking all this brush down, and then the goats are just crawling all over these brush piles, eating all these tender tips, all these seeds all winter long. It just makes it much more accessible and that type of stuff. And they're stripping. Here's another part where they dropped a whole bunch of trees and the goats are going around there, and they've done really, really well on this type of setting. This is the problematic plant that we have, a buckthorn, as it resprouts, and that's the problem. Everyone comes in our state, you cut everything out, make it all pretty and perfect, and then it gets to this level. Then you got 10,000 seedlings that are starting to come, and that's where everybody usually loses it and starts pointing fingers or gives up. So this is the part where the goats really excel, and this plant stays well green late, and it greens up really early, so it's just almost like a perfect gift for a forage for goats. Here's another picture of what it looks like kind of right now. Just snow on the ground, but you still have green on the brush there. And it's a hedgerow plant from Europe, so it's used to being, people are pruning it, in Scotland and England, making it all these little paths and trails, so it's used to taking a lot of abuse and a lot of cutting, so it's just definitely a trickier one. So this is a stump that I've cut a couple years ago, grazed with goats. It dies off in the center and starts to rot off, and the goats are managing the resprouts. Again here, and then this one is the stump's cut off, then the resprouts are coming, and then you go in the winter and then you strip the bark of the resprouts. And I'm just telling you right now, that plant's not happy and it's going down, and it's working really well, having to use no herbicide at all. So at any time I'm into consulting or whatever, and it's still in my state, I fight it every day. All the thing is you got to cut it down, you got to come back, and you got to stump treat everything. But I'm trying to show a model where you don't have to do that, and it's a really good food source. Again here, this is just some other trees, other species that they are managing for oak savanna, not just buckthorn. They really love the resprouts and stripping the bark of the resprouts. And again here on another honeysuckle in the winter. And then what I like to do is, this is my woods I used to not be able to crawl through with buckthorn, but as you get further along on the grazing progression, I like to actually leave some of this stuff, so we're starting to get some goldenrod and other stuff like that moving in, And that's what really puts the final nail in the coffin of that buckthorn. You have it, you cut it, it's resprouting, and then you get something in the summer to grow up tall, kind of shade those resprouts out. And so some of my land, I don't even graze in the summer with goats anymore, just because if I'm specifically working on the brush until I get the brush under control, only doing cool season grazing. And when I do it in the summer, this is my son this year, I don't really take it as far. I call it more of a polish graze, where I go, or browse, where they go. And that's what I love about goats. They eat from the top down, so then I just stop them before they go too far to the ground. And then I just totally open up and release all these really good plants and native plants that are underneath. Here's again another shot of the iconic buckthorn and the goats kind of going after it and stripping the bark. I'm still, if someone knows, if someone knows how to get forage samples, I know I was at your talk. I've yet to try to find someone that can give me some forage analysis of bark or berries. I know you can get like, grass and this and that. I don't know how to send it or who to send it, but find me after. I would just be curious what they're actually getting nutritional-wise, because there's a lot of times you'll see, well, if they're stripping bark, it means they're starving. And there's, like horses, I believe that's probably true. Certain ones that aren't getting enough. But I'm finding, multiple. I've been doing this for 8 years. It's not a fluke. They just love to eat the bark at certain times of the year, certain species, and that's the part that I really love to kind of study and see what they're actually really getting. And I'd be curious on that. And this picture I'm very proud of. This is prickly ash. They stripped, so all this skeleton stuff 1 year. They just sit there, they girdle it all, died back, and then look at all the stuff that's grown underneath. It used to be just a dead soil, nothing really growing there because it was too shaded out. Boom, one treatment. And you don't have to just let these fall down naturally. If you want it to be pretty, maybe you can come in with a bobcat or something and knock them over or push them over, but why? Or, if you have other animals like cattle and stuff a couple years, just let them run through it and smash them all down. We've got a lot of land to go. It's what I've been preaching for a while in Minnesota. There's no shortage of buckthorn and land that needs to be managed. Really steep slopes again, going up and down. Some of these are basswood, younger basswood, and it's just really cool how goats really gravitate to the weedier, thin bark species. So I've never had them strip the bark of an oak, of a bur oak, no matter the size. And then the larger diameter, they don't go after. So then you can control how long you want to put this in there. And that's where the goats always get the bad rap. And I've been grinding it out and fighting it for my state for a while, that there is actually more of an order of what they eat. I have more controls, I feel, than coming in, say, with a forestry mower or some of those types of machinery. And this is even the summertime, too. So at first, I felt like I had to really kind of get my goats to do this bark stripping, and now when they're kind of getting in their groove, I feel like they're getting better and better and better every year. I was just looking at some of my weathers a week ago, and I was like, wow, you guys are doing good. So I think there's a behavioral part, watching each other, and then also the nutritional part. But Siberian elm is another plant that people are kind of struggle with, and they just have totally taken to Siberian elm. And now even in the summertime, I'm getting more and more bark stripping on, so it's been really nice to see that. This is a park in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area that we're working in. And again, I just keep taking more shots different times of year of the buckthorn. And a lot of these are big and tall. Some of them are 20 to 30 feet tall. This is another area I'm really excited about. This is a 40-acre pen that they've been struggling with Siberian elm. They've been grinding it. They've been spraying it for years. And that's what I do. I talk to my land managers. I go, what is your problematic plant? What's really bothering you? What do you wish? And I remember on the phone, man, if you could ever figure out a way to get goats to just really go at Siberian elm, I'd love it. And then I wasn't even looking at that plant. So I'll go, I'll start looking on my job site. It's kind of not even on our radar. And all of a sudden I see them like, oh, they're stripping the bark of that. Turns out now we've been putting them in there. They're stripping an entire 40-acre pen. I want some university to go in and just count how many they girdled. And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of trees that are from here all the way to that. And then boom, totally top killed that year. And then they just resprout at the base. And then they're all at goat level the next year, even your smaller youngling, or your kid kind of goats. Black locust, this is another tree that they just love. We don't really have a ton of it. I know it's blocking other producers in other parts. That's why I'm trying to throw some of our species around here. But black locust, they love to go after the bark. And this is another one year-round for us now for our herd, black locust bark stripping. And aspens, basswoods, basically it's just trees are just over. I think they did too good a job when I was a kid making sure we love trees and hug trees. Like people really have, even native trees, like have a hard time cutting down. And I still struggled when I was like thinning out my forest to cut down some hickories. But once you do, you see all that light that comes in and the nut production, and my oaks are producing. I have some hickory trees that are producing nuts every year now that they're actually released. So it's just, once you see that stuff and the gain that you can have, and these, big goats, I have some big wethers that can really reach up tall. And this is a bigger Siberian elm tree that they're working on stripping the bark on. And this is that similar tree or a tree next to it the next year. Dead at the top, barely coming back at the base. Cedar trees, that's another one too that really gravitated to. And I see a lot of talk, it's kind of funny. I actually kind of, in my property, I try to protect them because we don't have a lot of cedar trees. But you talk to everybody else, it sounds like they're like the arch enemy of a lot of ranches and stuff for cedars out west and stuff. So it's kind of interesting because they'll go after, and I get them to strip the bark of young cedar trees. When they get older and stockier, I'm not going to lie, it's going to get harder. And some of those you might want to have to cut down, or girdle. But the younger ones, again, if you can just lead out with goats, is all I'm trying to encourage people to do. Also, being in the middle of south central Minnesota, it's corn and soybean land, just trying to find different ways or opportunities to put them out. Because I winter a lot of my goats in Kansas, and I bring them back up to Minnesota in the main flush season. But I'm just surprised that when I go to Kansas, like everybody has a fence around cornfields and soybean fields, but with Minnesota, nobody does. Nobody puts a fence around any of their fields. Just, the livestock have been kind of, I don't know what's just kind of moved out, or I don't know if it's too much work or whatnot. But so there's no shortage of farmers that are like, hey, eat my tree lines, I don't care what you do out there, and it's just kind of more management and that kind of stuff. What I was really hoping too, the goats would come in and scratch the snow and burrow in there, but I was finding that goats really don't like to burrow in the snow. So I'm finding that earlier in the spring is a good time to put them out on more crop residues. They love soybean fields and cornfields. And then even just moving them around, I had to call the sheriff. I'm like, hey, I'm moving them from one to the next. Can I do that legally? And they didn't even know. They had to call a couple people, and then they had to escort or whatever to cross when I cross the highway or whatever when I'm moving them, because I'm trying not to load them if I can. And so it's just been kind of something unique. Still in our part of the world, people stop and are looking in their cars, or even farmers are looking on their tractor. What in the heck is that guy doing out there? Walking around with goats down the road or whatnot. So it's fun. We have a lot of fun doing that. And then again, this is the other part that this particular thing, finding your plant that, whether it's leafy spurge or whatever part of your country, like the number one enemy in Minnesota is this European buckthorn, and it has tons of little berries. And everyone was really worried. They did some grant studies, and I've worked with the University of Minnesota twice, or multiple times on a research. So everyone's like, great, you're going out there, you're having your goats go and eat all these berries, and they're going to crap them all out, and you're just going to make, they're going to be perpetuating and making it worse. So I was part of a study. She came out, took samples, took goat BB samples, dissected it, did grow-out studies and all this and that. And I was actually kind of nervous on how it was going to go, and it went way, way better than I thought it was. They were finding, don't quote me on the exact percent, 97 to 98% of these seeds were getting destroyed in the gut of a goat. And that was one study. I can get you the contact one for that. And now another, I don't know if they weren't talking or whatever, but another study in Minnesota did the same study, and they found, again, the same thing. So it's two studies now. We're finding that just with their, the ruminant style of chewing and spitting up and re-chewing and that kind of stuff. So now we're using this as a technique, and this is the first thing they'll eat. When I cut down a buckthorn, in the wintertime, they lick every single berry off the whole plant, lick them up in the snow, and then they eat the tender tips, and then they eat the bark. But I, again, would love to know what they're getting out of these berries, if someone can help us figure that out. And then in the spring, we get a garlic mustard. I don't know if any of you have that plant, but that's the other, I would say, number 2 problem in Minnesota. And that plant comes up really one of the first and earliest things to come up. And so now I'm trying to get more and more sites with this, because I grazed a bunch of this stuff this spring with a lot of my females and my kids. And whatever it's supposed to be, I don't know. I'm not an expert on garlic mustard as far as the makeup or what it has in it. But I've heard quotes before. It's one of the healthiest plants on the earth to eat. I don't know what it has in it. It's just got a lot of, people make pesto out of it and this and that. But all I know is my goats really seem to be glowing after they're on this plant. So, and then here's how some of we do it, some of the watering. This is that Siberian elm field that I was talking about too, that they were stripping the bark, and you can see in the foreground all the way to the background. A little hard with the contrast to see, but just bark stripping everywhere direction you see. And I'm doing some studies at the U of M too on other things, collaborating all about research, because again, everybody doesn't believe a farmer, it's got to come from a university or whatever as far as getting it in publications or books. But this one they're actually studying this is a cover crop thing that we were playing with a little bit, and to see if there's any, they're studying it, if there's any diseases on that basically bad bacteria that can form just by having livestock in a cropping system. So they're taking samples of from my trailer of goat waste, or they're testing the different soil and all that kind of stuff. So I've been grazing this, and this research hasn't come out yet. Some people are getting remote-controlled grinders to drive up and down. This is a site there that I have goats on. And this stuff, it's cool and all that, but it was about, I think it was I looked at $8,000 a week to rent this thing if you wanted to, and remote control. But it's still, he was showing me how cool it was, and we were way away, and it was grinding, and all of a sudden one thing, zip, and just nailed him right in the boot, and it was just, you never know what can happen. It didn't, or other areas that you got to really watch on this kind of stuff. So, but there's definitely, I'm not going to say there's certain trees that gets too stocky that it's trickier to get them to chew on, but trying not to lead out with this. Just another quick thing on, this is the part of just kind of showing different stuff. Christmas trees, been doing Christmas tree recycling, have Lowe's come out or whatever after with all their ones, and I used to go out and collect them, and now they just come and dump them in by the pile to my farm here and go from there. So get them to eat those. I don't really do this much because my goats are out working, so they're really not home too much, but this was in the past. Other cool things that I'm trying, northern Minnesota with their land of 10,000 lakes, I've been doing islands. These are my 3 naughtiest goats, and they get to all expense paid trip to the farthest island away from me possible. So I show up, throw them there, they don't swim, they stay there all summer, and I move them from island to island. And while I'm out there checking on them, I caught this 50.5-inch muskie, so that was pretty cool. And yeah, this is the kids running around the island. Huh? 50.5-inch, yeah. So that was my first and only muskie, and that was
Looks like that's about a 50.5.
What's that?
50.5.
50 in it. Did I say, yeah, 50?
15.
No, 50.5-inch. Yep, muskie, yep. So that was really exciting, and I need this is that same island where they're eating at. And so I've just been moving them island to island, people loving it. And that's my next frontier, is to show how good they can improve water quality, because this used to be so lush, and the edges, everyone's worried about, what are the animals going to do near water? We're getting vibrant, fibrous roots and all kinds of pollinator habitat, and this is the part that I'm working on next. This was me a week or two ago getting them off the island because I'm so busy I didn't get up there. It started freezing, so I threw them in the lake, and then I had to bust a lot of ice to get them off the island to get them out. So we try to do different things to keep it interesting, but just trying to get, cleaning up the land and seeing it improve, and all these different plants moving in, all these native wildflowers that are coming up naturally on my woods. Blue cohosh, this is another plant that I just started seeing, I don't really need the research because I know the buckthorn's going away. I'm seeing all these good natives come in. I'm not having to pay for them. They're there in the seed bank. And I'm turning, this is like my woods, this is what it used to look like. It's kind of hard to get a good before and after picture, but all different levels of this buckthorn, and turning it from that into this, where my kids and I can walk around and look for mushrooms, all different types of stuff, more open, and all with goats. And this is really cool. Asters coming in, all that. My kids with the goats, they're able to actually, with their systems now, they're actually able, a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, pen them, sort them off, get the names of them, and do them themselves without having to worry about them getting injured. And it's just been really good for our family. And I'll close with, I know I got run out of time here, but a YouTube channel. I worked with the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, did a sustainability grant, and a big part of that grant, a lot of people put it in books and stuff like that, but I said we got to make sure we make a video out of it. So there's a 3-year study on my YouTube channel about more in-depth of the how-to to do some of this cool season stuff, as far as other things that we're doing for this cool season goat rental. And also have a grazegoats.com that I'm starting, is basically a way for people to learn how to do that, to get over that learning curve. keep goats in, keep goats alive, and it's going to be a subscription type thing to kind of try to help people, because a lot of people are nervous, but I know they're a lot. They come with their baggage, but they have so much good that they can provide all different levels, and hopefully you go. And then this is kind of one quote I came across back that I really like to. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And that's basically what I'm just trying to do. I'm not fighting what's going on in the state right now on how we're managing stuff. Just keep out grinding and taking pictures and videos and sharing. So thanks for having me. Cool.
You got any questions? There we go.
Yes?
Do you use a numbering system at all to tag your goats?
Yeah, so they still do have a number on one side and then the name on the other, correct. So they have two tags in case they pull one out. At least I can cross-reference.
So the state doesn't require you to tag?
No, yeah, we still need to do the scrape, test, tag, and stuff like that. Sure.
Do you have guardian animals with your
Yeah,
goats?
no, and that I still trying to figure that one out. No guarding animals, 8 years. I kid out, and unlike the other speaker, I'm actually going to kidding on the job. I tried it a little bit more every year, and it's going really well. I don't know if it's just our unique area, if we have more food, or why. I just haven't had a problem, and I don't, but I understand, like, even like Lyle was talking, like if you take your animals away, or the guard dogs away, so I'm just really careful what I say, but I haven't had a problem with it, and we do, hundreds of projects a year, as many as 14 projects going on at one time with the goats, kind of all over from the metro to rural areas, and I've even trapped coyotes. I had some slides on it. I've trapped them. If you want to keep coyotes in a pen, I think you could probably have a coyote farm because they can see where they're trying to dig. I think that might be a part of the electric netting is helping because I get them stuck. But even then when I had them in the pen, stuck with them, I still had young kids in there and they still didn't bother me. So I don't know. We have kind of a truce, and hopefully we can keep it going. So, yeah.
Any other questions? There you go.
Yeah,
Sure.
I missed the first part of the presentation. You may have covered it, but to determine how many goats per acre, or do you have a calculation that you run, or is it all just kind of based on your previous experience and amount of vegetation?
Based on previous experience, but this cool season is how I feel it can really open up the gates wide open. So like if I was grazing that 200 acres, I mean, my 500 goats wouldn't do it, but I mean, I could do some significant damage with 50 to 100 on that 500. So it just like, an eighth of the amount of goats I need to do double the damage is what I'm trying to preach. So definitely in the cool season, you don't need as many animals, and I think it's really cool to see that.
You can get up to a band of them. Can you send them our way?
yeah, definitely. And I don't know if you got to have the trees out there, but maybe you guys have some other brushy or woodier stuff that you're working on, but maybe you don't. And that's why. And I used to talk to my guy in Kansas. I'm like, why don't you get your stuff out there? And then I drove through Kansas. I was like, whoa, maybe you don't want to do too much stuff in the winter. You got to be kind of careful here because you don't really have a lot of that available forage. And that's what I'm looking at this buckthorn. It's just free food, and they're just grinding it and spraying it. And it's just like, hey, the goats are getting good benefit out of it. We might as well turn like everyone else is preaching. Let's make some meat out of this plant instead of just mowing it every 3 years.
All right, give them another hand.